Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian on this Thursday morning. This is The Take for Market Rebellion. Yesterday, really interesting day. We had the markets that started off a little flat. We had a nice spike to the upside. You look at the Dow, it was up about 100 points. You look over at the Nasdaq, that was performing pretty well as well. It was up about 30 points. Late in the session, you started to get the Fed minutes, and that certainly turned the tide. We had a huge shift in the markets off of that, and you started to see the markets move to the downside. Matter of fact, the Dow actually losing a couple of hundred points, finished down about 85 in total. But and then you look over at the Nasdaq, similar, down about 100 points, finished down about 64 points when it was all said and done. Gold had another tough day, took a hit, down a couple of percent. Silver, same sort of story. We had volatility. We talk about this range. Volatility kind of hanging around that 21 level, but with this sell-off, did see volatility get back up and over and got up towards 22 and a half and sort of that range. Had some nice volume yesterday. We've been talking about volumes kind of easing back. Well, volumes did start to return. As a matter of fact, 27.5 million contracts trading yesterday. And that's off of those levels where we were talking about. We got down towards 25 million. Again, bring it up all the time. These are huge numbers, and 2020 has proven to be some amazing numbers. And as we saw that sell-off late, it wasn't just the equity markets, but actually some of the commodities as well, because we watched gold ease back even a little bit further. It finished off about 3.5% after being down just a couple of percent. Same thing with silver, down about 4.5%. So that last part of the day, we certainly did see a shift in what was getting sold off. What held in there? Crude is almost like a magnet to this 42 and a half level, and it just seems to be holding somewhere in that range, and it's been there for quite a while. Big news of the day had to be Target. When you looked across and you looked at those numbers, everybody, I think, was in absolute amazement, because the crushing of those numbers is something like we haven't seen in a long time. The stock had already ran up into the number. As a matter of fact, hitting all-time highs, added another 12% yesterday, and those gains were actually held up. Majority of those gains absolutely were held up yesterday. When you look at where that stock and some of the delivery, the digital up 195%, the growth explosion across every one of the categories, and you even looked over at apparel, which had been a lagger for sure, but actually double-digit returns. And then all of a sudden you look at some of the spikes and the revenue growth and the digital revenue growth of $4 billion. I mean, these were huge numbers that came out of Target yesterday. Now, when the markets were moving to the upside and having a pretty decent day, financials were a part of it. Microsoft, Apple, yeah, we had a nice big hit. Apple hitting that $2 trillion number. Everybody was focused on that. Those big numbers, those market cap numbers, those are great. Absolutely fun. They're fun to talk about and everything else. Past that, I find them fairly meaningless. Thank goodness we didn't hear a lot of people coming out and talking about the law of large numbers, because that's a tired old statement that people always like to give out there when we start seeing markets actually shift to the upside. Now, the Nasdaq, it was getting driven pretty nicely by Facebook and Microchip and eBay and JD, and then obviously everything did take that pull to the downside late in the day. As a matter of fact, tech certainly made a turn along with the SMH. We talk about those chips all the time. Chips have been performing so well, but the chips were down just a little bit yesterday. Nasdaq didn't get hit too hard, but down 64 points. So pretty interesting day. Now coming into today, markets have had a little bit of pressure here and there. As a matter of fact, as early earnings roll along, it's been very, very interesting. Nvidia. This is a stock that's been all over the place in the pre-market and the post-market last night. Their numbers were extraordinary, but the stock obviously had run into those numbers, so a little bit of a pullback, and people had some concerns. It's already gone green today. We're only in the first half hour of trade so far, and it's probably going to be shifting around throughout the day. I'm sure about that. Their data center numbers, absolutely spectacular. The growth that they are seeing in this company, it probably warrants what we're seeing for a PE level, which right now is very, very high. You look at the forward PE of about 60, and you say, Pete, that's extraordinarily high. What are you talking about? When you've got the kind of growth that they've had, and they finally had data centers actually surpass gaming, that really was a big move for Nvidia, especially with the stumble that we'd seen out of Intel. Because of that stumble, Intel's decided they're going to do that repurchase of about $10 billion worth of stock. So that stock had a nice big move, 4% move to the upside on that news. We'll see if that can actually hold that $50 level, but that certainly was part of the news story as well. So in the pre-market today, Dow was down about 110. Here we're looking at it right now, still down about 90 points. The NASDAQ looked like that was kind of wavering around a little bit, but I'm looking at it right now, actually popped into positive territory. Certainly those names like Nvidia starting to move to the upside, Apple as well. So that's providing some of that. Now, pressure once again on the precious metals. We see that in gold down about 2%, silver down about 1%. You know where crude is? 42 and a half. Amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's just literally been that magnet to this level. Now, volatility has spiked up a little bit. Give you a full update. We were up 24 and a half just a few minutes ago, now about 23 and a half. So a little bit of a spike in the volatility. We'd been in that very, very tight range. We had some movement yesterday and today, and I think some of that's starting to play back in terms of the volatility, but we can call this volatility range now. Maybe you call it 21 to 23, something like that. That's what it seems like. 24 and a half, that was there just for a few seconds, and then it seems like that drifted away, and here we are back down towards 23 and a half. So the SMH down a little bit right now. What was boosting the NASDAQ as we started to make this turn? Zoom, Netflix, Apple, PayPal, Amazon, some of the usual suspects, and some of those stay-at-home stocks. You got Take-Two as well. Tesla is one of those names that's been very, very strong. Been watching that one for a while, ever since the 5-for-1 announcement of the split. That's been extremely strong. So where's the strength when you're looking into the Dow names, and where are the weakness coming from? Well, the strength is coming. It's all tech. Intel, Apple, Cisco, Microsoft. There's your strength. Where's the weakness coming from? Raytheon, Dow, Chevron, Caterpillar, Financials, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. We talked about JP Morgan. If it could hold over that 100 level, and it did for a couple of days. Matter of fact, popped up pretty nicely. Just that wonderful head fake once again, fooling everybody, and then pulled right back down once again. And here we are now towards those middle 90s once again for JP Morgan. So another failed move to the upside. Now, unusual option activity. Yes, I'm in my shirt and tie, and I'm kind of in a little bit of a rush. Going to be doing the halftime report for you guys today. So I'll see you on CNBC around noon today. That should be pretty exciting. We got some great stuff to kick around and talk about. So the unusual that I saw right out of the gate very early, and like I say, we're 34 minutes into the day right now, just to give you a little update. Square was trading, things will change, was trading 154.80, so just underneath 155. Now, what are they buying? They bought 5,000 of the August. Those expire tomorrow. So this is call it a 2-day trade if we're calling Thursday. August 155s. They bought them for 90 cents. They went all the way up to about $2.50 for these calls, about 5,000 of those trading. And again, expiring tomorrow. We've talked about a lot of the short term. We had been seeing a little bit more further out paper. We'd seen paper going out to September. We've seen buyers and sellers that are moving even out towards January, but the majority of the paper still remains August. It's right here, right in front of us now. Very, very short term. That's been the theme. Folks, knowledge is king. Get that knowledge. The guys here at Market Rebellion are the best in the industry. They'll educate you. You'll understand all the Greeks, and you'll have a much better understanding of the derivatives world. That's where things are happening. That's where the growth is. Talk about where growth is for Target. You talk about growth for Nvidia. You talk about growth for whatever stock you're looking at. That's what you'll focus on. Well, where's the growth in the stock market, into the financial world? It's in the derivatives. That's where we are. We are the Market Rebellion. That's why we always say, follow the smart money. Have a great day, folks.